Good evening and welcome to a new episode of To The Point. Today we're going to be discussing more about the economic achievements that have been taking place around the nation since the June 30th revolution, since we were celebrating it earlier last week. We're joined this evening by Dr. Mostafa Tamaam, a financial and economic consultant who is here to tell us more about the economic achievements that have been taking place around the nation. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening to you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Can you tell us what has changed when it comes to how the government has dealt with the finances and the economy since 2013?
Well, the most important thing, you see, because the economy is in parallel with the political system.
Yes.
And since if you don't have an equilibrium in the political system, this will have a negative impact on the economic performance. So certainly, as you know, since 2011 and until 2013, we used to have a lot of political instability due to certainly the dramatic changes when the outburst of the ex-president Mubarak and the revolution and all that, and all these dramatic changes took place. And I think you can remember that you used to have demonstrations every week at the Tahrir place here. Certainly, all this used to have a negative impact on the economic situation. In order to recover, this led to certainly a lot of investments had left, specifically in the oil sector. A lot of foreign companies left, and there has been probably a showdown in the economic scene. I'd like to mention something very important. Thanks to the small and medium projects, that these have elevated the economy because as you know probably that most of the large institutions have been not working because due to the political instability. So certainly due to the importance, this shows the importance of the small and medium projects that supported the economy during this period. The most important thing that has been achieved is political stability. As you remember, after 12-13, we used to have a lot of terrorism in the area. Fortunately, due to a lot of efforts, you see, and I'd like to say it's the efforts of the Egyptian people, they all cooperate, because you see, it was a danger that is not facing only the administration or the government, it's facing all Egyptian citizens, that they refused this. And certainly we were luckily able to maintain political stability. If you look around, you see the Middle East, look what's happening in Yemen, look what's happening in Libya, you see, look what's happening in Syria. It's a disaster. Certainly there was probably a plan in order to disturb or to disequilibrium the Middle East itself. Fortunately, by the unity of the Egyptian people here, you see, with the government and with the army, all this we were able to maintain the political stability, and this at the next stage had a positive reflection on the economy, and the economy started to move again. I'd like to give you an example. Let's talk about figures. The reserves after the revolution, they reached the dollar reserves in the central bank. They reached 15 billion. After they used to be 40 or 50. See, after we had economic stability, as you know, it had been raising again. It went to 35 and then went down, probably because, you know, the war that is going now in Ukraine and all that. But again, there has been an improvement. This is an indicator. Number two, which is very, very important, is the economic reform program that was introduced in November 2016. The major factor was to have a free market rate for foreign currency, which is based on demand and supply. You see, this certainly, and other factors, you see, because it will be a long, if we discuss this, it will take a long time, but I'm taking the main points. All these factors led that the investors again had confidence in the Egyptian economy.
Yes.
We have stability. We don't have surprises, things that come out suddenly like that, because certainly as an investor, you need to plan at least for 2 or 3 years.
Yes.
In the past, it would be when you had the turbulence after 2011,
yes.
It was very difficult to estimate what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yes.
You see, it was very difficult to forecast. But now with the political stability,
yes.
this had an impact on, and certainly we can see a lot of investors now in the projects that are erected, you see, all over, not only in the agriculture sector. We have the 1.5 million fidans that
yes.
are going to do. We have encouraging the industry. We have the free zone in the Suez Canal. There are a lot of projects that are coming in there. And also we have the revenues of the Suez Canal, which have increased, you see.
Yes.
This is due to what? Due to the extension, the projects that have been to develop the Suez Canal. You see, if you have a project and you don't spend money on it, you're not going to get any return, you see. But by renewing and putting a lot of money in it, certainly you're going to get a high rate of investment. This is what's happened, had happened. Also in the petroleum sector, you're aware that Egypt was in debt with $6 billion, and all these debts had been paid again, and the foreign companies started again in exploration and production, and we have the oil business is doing very well now. And this is evidenced by the gas projects you see in the Mediterranean Sea, the MP gas projects, which will provide a lot of gas, you see, not only to Egypt, but to the
exporters of gas.
Exactly.
Yes.
So all these are really a lot of achievements, and due to the political stability.
Yes. There's also been a lot of reform that is tangible other than the political aspect of it all. We've seen major overhaul, for instance, in the transportation and road networks within Egypt itself.
Right.
How important is this for someone who's thinking of investing here in Egypt when it comes to transportation?
I'll tell you. Let us talk about infrastructure itself, not only transportation is a part of the infrastructure, and the roads are part of the infrastructure.
Yes.
If you don't have a proper infrastructure, I'll tell you a very simple example. Since a long time ago, it was very difficult that you can contact someone by telephone, you see.
Yes.
Now you have this by mobiles, and the telephones are all available. The roads that have been done. Number two, the metro network project and the railway, you see, the new railway system that is being erected, all this certainly would have a positive impact. This is very, very important, because probably an investor to carry out his product from part A to part B, instead of spending 10 hours, he'd be spending half an hour by moving. You see, this means a lot to him, and is reflected to the cost, you see, again. So certainly all these mega projects will have, the infrastructure is very, very important in order to attract. A lot of people don't understand this, but this is a fact in economics, that you don't have a good infrastructure, no one is going to come. At the airports, you see now they're developing a lot of new airports, and they are making, in order to encourage the tourism, you see.
Yes.
So all these projects are interconnected, you see, with each other.
What about the new megacities that they're building right now, like the new administrative capital or the new Alameen city and all of that? Why is it important, or why is there a focus on creating smart cities?
I'll tell you, certainly, as you know here, Cairo now is very congested.
Yes.
And in order to expand, you have two ways. Either to go, you remember in the era of President Sadat, we had the October City and the new zone here in Heliopolis, you see.
Yes.
These are new cities that have been very much really connected with the capital.
Yes.
We don't want this. We want to have a place where you have your own business. You have in order the people will not be able to come every day to the major capital here downtown, and this will have a negative effect on the transportation.
Definitely.
For example, if I want to finance something, a governmental issue, and I'm living in 6th of October city, it will take a long time for me, for example, from 6th of October to come here. But the new city, the new capital city now, you have all the services that are available there. You don't need to come here.
Yes.
So it will save a lot of time and a lot of money. And certainly it's built with modern style that will attract also foreigners, specifically the Arabs. I'd like to talk also about the north coast, you see, and Alamein. A lot of projects there are, and certainly there you have the north coast. The sea it's a very nice place there, and certainly you can attract a lot of tourism in the summer. This is all very, very important, you see.
Yes, there's also a focus on creating or, sort of helping industries grow as well. You spoke a little bit about the Suez Canal and how they've tried to invest into it, as well as, agriculture and industry itself. What do you think are the most important projects that could help improve the economic growth of Egypt?
Actually, I don't want to say there are projects, but there are certain factors that probably we should focus on. First is certainly we have to streamline the legal procedures. You see, it's totally unacceptable that you have, if I am in a dispute with you, or with any other organization, it's not acceptable that this dispute stays into the courts for 5 to 10 years. You see, this is a factor probably that, and certainly it's very easy and doesn't need any money. You don't need financing. It needs to revamp the legal procedures. You see, number two is probably we have to have professional trained human resources, and this is based on the education system. If you have a and now certainly the government is working on the revamping the education system, which is based on thinking, not on probably learning,
memorizing things,
memorizing and learning, you see, but it's based on thinking, you see. So certainly, and using high technologies, you see, again, all this you have to be in a competitive market in order. If the investor will come here and do not find the adequate human resources, he will not be able to
utilize the capital.
Exactly, because it will be very expensive for him to get expatriates here to work. They will ask for housing allowance and travel allowance, and they will take very high salaries, you see. And this is certainly another factor. The third factor is bureaucracy, probably. And certainly, probably with the digitalization now, you see, the state now is taking a lot of steps in order to make have everything digitalized. You see, so you don't even need, you can do this from home. You don't need, for example, to renew your car license by going to the office of renewing car license. You can pay, I think, I heard this, and probably it be applied recently, that you can pay your bills through electronic devices. Certainly this will save a lot of money and time.
The central bank has launched a electronic wallet that...
I heard this,
and apparently it's a big success with a lot of people. They think it's a very useful tool.
What about the focus on the energy sector itself? We're seeing that obviously, the traditional fossil fuels are an important part of it, but we're also seeing a big push towards natural resources that involve renewable energy, like solar panels and windmills and all of that.
Well, probably we're moving towards this line, and we have the Daba, you see, project, the nuclear project, and which is going to generate, as you mentioned now, energy from unusual resources. We used to depend on the oil and you see, on the natural and the classic. I want to go on the classic. Now we're moving to another era now. We're moving, probably using the atomic energy, we use the solar energy, and probably I think we are very proud of the work of the Ministry of Electricity, which is doing a very, very good, excellent job. I want to tell you something very important, and probably you remember that. In 2013, we used to suffer from power cuts for at night from 5 to 6 hours. This does not occur anymore right now. And certainly this is due to the excellent work done by the Ministry of Electricity now in order to provide the energy, you see, in all phases. Certainly be very important, the price of energy for industry, because this is a major factor that will affect probably on the cost of the final products, you see.
Yes, we're also seeing a move, I mean, obviously, other than, creating these factories or companies that produce this kind of energy, we're also seeing a move towards clean cities. Like, for instance, Sharm el-Sheikh, now they're working on having it completely powered with renewable energy. How important is this to tell people that, we have a complete city that's made of clean energy?
Certainly this will take some time.
Yes.
Because certainly now we need there's a very important aspect in this. We have to train the people how to use these techniques, you see, and this will take some time. So certainly we will not expect the magic wand. It will take some time, but we have to start. Step one, very, very important.
Yes. Can we go back to the idea that you were talking about cutting red tape and bureaucracy and all of that?
Yes.
There were plans of creating one-stop shops whereby you can create your own business and have it registered and all of that in a one-stop shop.
Right.
Is it still functional, or is it? I mean, are there ways to improve it and so forth?
Probably, I think yes, by giving proper training to the people that apply these. And I'd like to tell you something very, very important. I cannot blame the employees that have worked in government institutions because no one guided them or gave them guidance or training.
Yes.
So they are victims. You see, because it's not their fault. You see, they're
not trained. They're not skilled.
And they lived in a certain environment that probably made their minds work in a certain methodology. It's different than a person who worked at the private sector. He has the flexibility to take decisions and all that. This is not existent, unfortunately, and certainly we cannot blame, as I told you, the employees. We blame probably their bosses that they didn't give them the guidance and the proper training in order to upgrade their skills. Certainly, all this will change, but it will take some time. You see, it's not in a fortnight.
Yes. There's also a move right now. I mean, there's a lot of mega projects, obviously, that the government has worked on. But now they're moving towards the idea of privatization or working with the private sector to have them more an inclusive environment for them. Is this something that creates a sense of stability for foreign investors?
This is very important. I'll tell you why. The private sector, either they are foreign companies or local large Egyptian companies, they have the expertise and the knowledge and the know-how and the management skills, which is very important, you see. And probably in the governmental institutions, it's not the matter, as I told you, they get used to the people in the governmental institutions are afraid of taking decisions, you see, and they work by the book, you see. So probably by having the private sector, certainly will speed up the projects, it will eliminate bureaucracy, it will we will able to meet the deadlines if we set a deadline for a certain project. Certainly, some government institutions don't stick to it, you see, because as I told you, the previous factors. Now, with having the private sector, we're going to gain all their experiences and try to apply them in our daily business.
Yes.
This is very important.
Yes. Do you think, sir, that the current visits, I mean, recently in the last month or so, during the month of June, we've seen a number of visits from people in the Gulf countries, leaders there, and as well a visit, a tour in the GCC area by the president.
True.
This was basically to discuss, obviously, political aspects of the relationship, but also financial and economic aspects. In the next 2 or 3 years, do you expect that the Arab investments within Egypt are going to increase, and kind of investments?
Certainly they will increase. I'll tell you, I'll give you a very simple example.
Yes.
When we had the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, who just visited Egypt recently, there has been an agreement to erect projects worth $30 billion, you see, from Saudi Arabia alone.
Yes.
Certainly, this will give a positive impact, a message to other countries and encourage them to come here and do business. But certainly it will take some time, you see.
Yes.
Because certainly investors want to see what will be the results. If I put my money here, will it get a good rate? So as I told you, it's very important. And I suggest that we have a steering committee out of the governmental institutions in order to eliminate any obstacles that would face these investors, you see. If you have a steering committee, certainly they go, the investor can go there and give his complaint, and they solve it immediately in order not to wait for months or ages. It's very, very important.
Yes. Do you think, sir, that there are certain sectors that Arab investors are more focused on than others?
Yes, probably. I'll tell you, the major sector probably which are focused is the building sector. You see,
yes,
a lot of companies now erect compounds, not only in Cairo, but in the North Coast. You can see a lot of advertisements there. So probably the building is one of very, very promising and very secure also. You see. And the risks are minimal because there's a demand on the housing. You see.
Yes.
Number two, probably it will be the agriculture. But with the problem with agriculture certainly is that we lack the peasants. A lot of people do not work in this field. You see. In the past, you used to have
But farming now is more technologically based than traditional farming.
This is true.
Yes.
Yes. But certainly it will need, again, to upgrade the human resources and to change the technology and the mindset. That probably, you see, a lot of people underlook the people working in the agricultural sector.
Yes.
It's a psychological, but this is not true. Because if you, unfortunately now, because we used to, in the past, we used to neglect the agricultural sector.
Yes.
We import most of our basic needs, and this has an impact, a negative impact on the exchange rate of the dollar, because it gives a lot of pressure on the dollar and the demand, and certainly the demand is going to increase, and this might cause that the dollar might increase again. You see? So we have to depend on ourselves. I'll tell you a very simple example. When you had the war in Ukraine now, 40% or 30% of the wheat was produced in this area, you see. Now, here in Egypt, we have been trying to do that, you see. We started cultivating wheat, and certainly will not be affected negatively as other countries which used to depend on imports. So it's and again, I'd like to give you a very important example. Cooperation between the Middle Eastern countries is very important. I'll give you a very simple example. Sudan, they have a lot of cultivable land. A great deal is there. All they need is manpower. So if we coordinate, both of us, we have the manpower and they have the land. I'll tell you something, you'll be astonished that Sudan can supply all the Middle East with all their basic food needs.
Yes.
You see this? If we use our
cooperation, basically.
Cooperation based and properly.
Yes. But what was interesting about the visits by these Arab nations as well to Egypt was there was focus on other industries that were not necessarily traditional industries that they focus on, like the medical sector, and tech, like cybersecurity and all of that. How is this important I mean, why is it important to the Arab investors to invest in this field here in Egypt? Are we, for instance, advanced in the medical industry?
I think in the medical sector it will be a bit different because the technology in the medical sector is probably monopolized, I would like to say, by foreign companies, big names, you see. And we have, in Egypt here, we have certain public sector companies which do a very great business. Example, the seed company. They are doing they provide a lot of medicine at very low prices. But certainly it will be very difficult for Arabs to enter in this field because it's very sophisticated and very professional, and probably they don't have the experience to run such companies. And that's my opinion. I might be wrong, but I think they would like to have something that they know about, and it's easier for them. The pharmaceutical is very, very complicated and needs professionals and needs also a lot of research, R&D. Very important.
Can we go back before the visits as well? Can we look at in the last few years, what do you think is an important or integral part to attract foreign investors when it comes to the economic reform program? What did the government do to make people feel more secure about investing money here in Egypt?
Probably is the stability of the law.
Other than the politics aspect of it.
The stability of the law, and that we do, it's very, very important. And I think the government is doing a great job on this by stabilizing, giving security, and there not be sudden changes, you see. Because you, as an investor, you make your assumptions and new calculations on certain assumptions that are existing, and certain factors. If one of these factors change negatively, it will affect you. So certainly we have now the stability of the law. We don't have this arbitrary that someone suddenly takes a decision to change something like that, which
it's like a building block, basically.
Exactly. Yes.
Do you think that since the Ukraine and Russia crisis, we've seen a number of central banks around the world raise their interest rates, like the Federal Bank in America and several Arab countries, Europe, and so forth?
Correct. Yeah.
We've seen a lot of hot money leaving Egypt in the last few months. True. How can the economy recover from such a thing? How can it be more attractive for these investors to come in?
I'll tell you, by encouraging mega projects which give a high rate of investment and give the security also to the investor.
Yes.
And I'd like to give you probably two examples in the industry and in the agriculture. These are two potential areas that we have been neglected since a long time ago, but the government now is working hard in order to start up all these projects.
Yes. Can you also tell us a bit about the idea that the government has worked on a number of projects like the administrative capital, and now they're trying to include shares within the stock market and stock exchange.
Right.
Why is this something that is important?
This is very important to activate the stock market, you see. Again, in the past, you see, when we had this corona problem, certainly this affected negatively the stock market, you see, and not only the other aspects. Now, by having this, we are encouraging investors to buy these shares, and it's a sort of stability, and that these companies, if you put them in the stock market, it's an indication that these companies are doing well, because the stock market is an indication. If it's going up and down, it shows you that the performance of the company itself. So this is very important. It reflects the performance of the company.
Yes. We're starting to see that these projects, a lot of them are actually towards the final phase of it and final building of it. So the government has been working on sort of sustaining what's happening, I suppose, by keeping these jobs or maintaining these jobs, because obviously there are a lot of hundreds and thousands of workers that have been working on these projects.
Right.
What can they do to ensure job security for the people that work on these projects once these projects are finalized?
I'll tell you, this is a very good question. Probably the way will be that certainly we start, we are not, there's not a state that's going to end projects. We also always have new projects that are coming in the tunnel. So certainly we have to have a master, and I think we have a master plan which is dated 2030, which will give us certainly a reflection until the year 2030. We could give a job security by telling the people which are performing properly that they'll be offered jobs in the new projects.
Yes. Do you think that also the fact that Egypt was able to stabilize the situation when it comes to security, not just the political aspect, was this important for people, whether local or foreign investors, like battling terrorism and all of that?
Certainly.
Yes.
And I think probably Egypt has made a great effort in combating terrorism. You see, you remember, since I told you, since probably 7-8 years, we used to have troubles, a lot of troubles all the way around Egypt now, and in Sinai specifically. Now probably all this has gone. And as I told you, this is due to the cooperation between Egyptian citizens, because it's a risk that affects us all, not only the government.
Yes. Like you were saying, that Sinai was a hotspot during this time of instability in Egypt since 2013, but things started to stabilize, and now we're also seeing projects that are taking place in the Sinai area. This is important, obviously, for the people who live in the peninsula itself.
Definitely.
Do you think that this is going to help them feel more integrated within the society, and what kind of projects could we see within the Sinai Peninsula?
Probably, you see, Sinai is very rich in mineral resources. You see, so probably and in agriculture. So probably in these two aspects, probably investors, we should probably the government should probably promote and give a picture to the investors what are the opportunities that are there. You see, because there are a lot of, in the mining industry, there are a lot of opportunities there. You have a lot of mineral resources there. Yes. Also the agriculture, you see, is a good potential. Yes. Number 3 is the tourism. You see, we have a lot of sites there in
South Sinai, yes.
You see, that probably visitors would like to visit. You have the coasts in Sharm el-Sheikh and there that people like to come and spend nice time and holiday there. You see, and I think the tourism is recovering now.
Yes,
yes. I was just coming on my way to your building here, yes. And I was very pleased to see that the occupancy rate in the Marriott, you see, I saw a lot of rooms have been lightened.
Yes.
So this gives an indication that the occupancy rate is high, you see. In the past, you didn't see that. You see probably 2 or 3 rooms in a hotel which has 1,000 rooms. So certainly, now again, the tourism is recovering. And this is very, very important because it's a very big source of foreign currency.
Okay, unfortunately, sir, we're out of time, but thank you so much for joining us.
Dr.
Mostafa Tamaam, a financial and economic consultant. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you. This brings us to the end of this episode of To The Point, but stay tuned for more on Nile TV.